sit where you
Sit
please.
anywhere.
Yeah. You want to go? You want to go in the order of introductions?
But if I think it canceled. So I ended up saying, I ended up saying and having said that I couldn't train that.
Jeff Loudkins, I have you over here.
Okay.
Mr. Lee, I have you right here.
This is my good sign, so.
Science.
For now. Your microphones are on unless you want to turn them off.
Always turn off. Safest things.
Yeah, we're gonna have a recruit there, so I think we're.
Yeah, I guess we can go.
Yeah. Yeah. We at least have been developing it's quicker.
You're started. Good afternoon, everyone. All right. My name is Andre Wright. I'm a program analyst with the Supplier Accountability Division for Office of Shared Service and Delivery here at GSA. And I want to welcome everyone to our joint panel discussion, Accountability, Integrity, Transformation, and Federal Acquisition. We are thrilled to bring together this group of distinguished leaders today to share their unique perspectives and insights. We will hear from each of them, and following the panel, we will transition directly into our Ask Q&A GSA session. First, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Linnell Wilcott, AbilityOne ABLE representative. Linnell is guiding our conversation today, utilizing her specialized proficiency in AbilityOne adherence, sourcing protocols, and legal structures overseeing government procurement. She will be introducing our great panelists. Thank you. Welcome, Linnell.
Thank you, Andre. Good afternoon and welcome. As Andre mentioned, my name is Linnell Walcott, and I'm GSA's lead AbilityOne representative, or ABOR. It is my privilege to welcome you to today's executive panel on accountability, integrity, and transformation in federal acquisition. On behalf of the General Services Administration and the U.S. AbilityOne Commission, thank you for joining us in this important conversation. Throughout today's Supplier Roundtable, we've explored practical ways to strengthen our partnership, from pricing and demand planning to labeling, data, and operational excellence. One common theme has emerged. Our success depends on collaboration. The federal supply chain is evolving rapidly. Agencies are being asked to deliver greater value, improve resilience, strengthen domestic sourcing, modernize operations, and maintain the highest standards of stewardship for taxpayer dollars. None of these objectives can be achieved by any one organization alone. Today's discussion brings together leaders who are helping shape that future. They represent policy, acquisition, business transformation, and the AbilityOne program, and each plays a critical role in ensuring that federal procurement remains transparent, mission-focused, and responsive to the needs of both government customers and industry partners. For our suppliers in the audience, today's panel is an opportunity to hear directly from senior leadership about the priorities shaping tomorrow's acquisition environment and how industry can continue to be a trusted partner in delivering mission success. We are sitting at one of the most consequential moments this program has seen in a generation. And the people who can actually help us make sense of it, the people who are writing the policy, managing the channels, and leading this program are sitting right here. So we'll begin today's moderated discussion, and I will make sure we have ample time for audience questions. It is now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panel. To my left, first, it is my pleasure to introduce Jeff Kosis, Senior Procurement Executive within the Office of Government-Wide Policy at GSA. Jeff leads government-wide acquisition policy that shapes how federal agencies buy goods and services across the enterprise. His leadership has been instrumental in advancing acquisition excellence, category management, and policies that strengthen efficiency, accountability, and value for the American taxpayer. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Kosis. Our next panelist is Mark Lee, Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Business Optimization at GSA. Mark leads initiatives focused on strengthening operational performance, policy compliance, and organizational transformation. His work helps ensure that modernization efforts are supported by sound governance, effective oversight, and measurable results, which are critical elements in building a stronger federal supply chain. Please welcome Mark Lee. It is also my pleasure to introduce Jeff Lau, Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Shared Services Delivery within GSA's Federal Acquisition Service. Jeff oversees programs that support global supply operations and works closely with government and industry partners to improve supply chain performance, product availability, operational efficiency, and customer service. His leadership is helping drive modernization across one of the federal government's largest acquisition organizations. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Lau. Our final panelist is Kim Zeik, Executive Director, the United States AbilityOne Commission. Kim brings extensive leadership and experience supporting the AbilityOne program and its mission of creating employment opportunities for Americans who are blind or have significant disabilities. Through collaboration with federal agencies, nonprofit organizations, and industry partners, Kim helps advance a program that delivers both exceptional mission support and meaningful economic opportunity. Please join me in welcoming Kim Zeik. And thank you all for being here today. So we'll start with an around the table on domestic sourcing issues. This is one of the highest priorities of our administration and, of course, all of the federal employees that work within the federal government. So Jeff Kosis, I will start with you. Jeff set the table for us. There's a lot going on government-wide and within GSA on domestic sourcing and Made in America priorities across the federal marketplace. Help us understand what's happening.
Thank you, Linnell. Good afternoon, everyone. Really appreciate the opportunity to join you to have this conversation. You know, for the last 250 years, when our country is looking to buy a product, when we're looking to buy a service, because we're spending taxpayer money, we're looking to more than meet that immediate need. We're looking to also accomplish a public policy objective. You all are familiar with many of those public policy objectives. Sometimes there's a focus on things such as treatment of labor, fair wages, and so forth. Sometimes there's a focus on creating opportunity. Many of the socioeconomic programs fit into that, as does the AbilityOne program. Often there's a focus on domestic sourcing. Sometimes there's a focus on sustainability. And there's a host of other public policy objectives. Very common, you find them across every administration. And as each president moves in, as each administration gets set, they're looking, how do they best leverage the power of federal procurement to drive other key priorities? For the last 9 years, we have seen increasing focus on domestic sourcing as a central tenet. During that window, we've seen 5 executive orders that emphasize domestic sourcing. We've seen statutory changes. We've seen other action from the White House trying to emphasize that. So what you're seeing today, that's a continuation of nearly a decade-long trend in this space. If we go back to 2017 and the beginning of President Trump's first term, he signed the Buy American, Hire American executive order. That was the first in this real series trying to say, hey, we need to strengthen domestic manufacturing. That executive order, an executive order is direction to the entire executive branch. That's where GSA resides, that's where the Department of Defense, Department of War resides, all of the major cabinet agencies, and the AbilityOne Commission. So the direction in that first executive order, it was to strictly monitor, strictly enforce the Buy American Act, reduce the use of waivers. In 2019, he followed that up with a second executive order. This one had the title, Maximizing Use of American-Made Goods, Products, and Materials. So having laid the predicate, this came back and it said, hey, let's look at something called the domestic content tests. How much of the product components are made in America, and let's increase that minimum required percentage. In January of 2021, shortly before the end of his first term, he signed a third executive order. This one aimed at telling the U.S. Postal Service to follow the Buy American principles and concepts. Also in 2021, when President Biden came into office, he issued his own executive order on Made in America. This one was called Ensuring the Future of All of America. Ensuring the future is made in all of America by all of America's workers. This is the executive order that established the Made in America office. It further increased those content requirements that President Trump had increased in his 2017 executive order. It mandated tougher reviews. Most recently, about a couple of months back, President Trump signed a further executive order, this one entitled Ensuring Truthful Advertising of Products Claiming to be Made in America. Now, this one was a particularly aggressive executive order. Let me just quote a portion of that, emphasizing a couple points. It said, all agencies that oversee government-wide acquisition contracts and multiple awards schedules. Mark, what could they be talking about? Now, what agencies are that? Obviously, we're talking GSA here, folks. Shall periodically review and verify. In other words, shall audit. Any Buy America Act, country of origin, USA, or similar American origin claim. Contractors found to represent those American origins status. Well, if you're an agency, and remember we're talking to GSA, if you find that, remove those products from availability, take them off the schedule, take them off of your websites, and what's more, refer them to the Department of Justice, who may pursue action under the False Claims Act. So now, Executive Order number 5 in the series, very strong message, really emphasizing, hey, we're serious about driving American-made production. We're so serious, we are telling GSA, hey, go in there, look at that, audit the program, remove things that are non-compliant, and refer them to the Department of Justice. You know, that is a very, very strong message about the importance of domestic sourcing to this administration and to how they're trying to go use those levers of power. When an executive order gets written, it gets translated in many different ways. It gets translated into regulation. And for instance, some of the ones I've talked about have found their way into the federal acquisition regulations. It gets translated into agency guidance. You've seen the AbilityOne Commission issue 2 directives in the last year to move forward in this direction. It gets translated to our acquisition workforce as our contracting officers have got a very clear message. Let's be more serious, let's be more vigilant, let's try and strengthen our oversight of every one of our contractors when it comes to Made in America type requirements. And if you don't see it yet, you are going to see all of the agencies who use GSA start looking at that, thinking about that, and shifting their buying patterns. That's not 5 executive orders that are landing alone. There have been 48 executive orders over the last 18 months dealing with acquisition. And I have to confess, I didn't get the chance to check this morning, so I'm not confident in that count. One more worth mentioning, from May of this year, established a task force on fraud in federal spending. GSA was not named as a charter member of that, but has since been added with a specific focus look at procurement fraud. And when they're talking procurement fraud, they're going right back to this same issue about representation, about Made in America. It's a big picture message. It's a message that when it comes to the public policy purposes of procurement, there is an intense focus right now on strengthening domestic production, on onshoring, on bringing jobs back into the country. And that setup, that concept, that's influencing how the AbilityOne Commission is making decisions and issuing directives. That's influencing how Jeff and the GSA team are purchasing, how they're going to market, what they're looking for. It's influencing what Mark's team is doing as they're looking at questions of contract oversight. So, Linnell, that's the big picture of what we're seeing.
Jeff, thank you so much for providing the statutory framework. Now I want to pivot to Kim. Kim, you recently issued new commission guidance addressing Buy American compliance and the executive order landscape. Walk us through what drove these policy actions, what gap or risk were you responding to, and what do you need MPAs to understand about what has changed?
So thank you, Linnell, for that question. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and share with all of you, and have enjoyed catching up with many of you earlier in the day. I do want to talk a little bit about what led the commission to this place. And Jeff Kosas has given us the perfect backdrop, if you will. But as you all know, at the U.S. AbilityOne Commission, we are a federal agency. We are part of the executive branch. So just as our colleagues at GSA do, we focus on how we can advance the administration's goals. And of course, the president has been very clear in his guidance that American manufacturing is important. So of course, we are looking for how we align the AbilityOne program with that and how we convey that alignment. So I will certainly say the intensity of our focus on domestic sourcing in the program has increased over the past few years, and really it's increased consistently with the guidance that Jeff Kosas just spoke about. It does require an investment of time, an investment of resources. I know that the AbilityOne nonprofit contractors in the room have all been giving this a lot of time and attention, and I do want to say on behalf of the commission, we thank you for that. We appreciate that. We know that our AbilityOne network is really working to meet the moment. And I knew that coming in today, but I know that even more through the conversations that I've had with our AbilityOne contractors throughout the day. I think we all want to show that the AbilityOne program is a domestic manufacturing program, that we are an important part of the industrial base. Just 15 to 18 months ago, we did not have all of the information about AbilityOne products that we have today. So we have a long history with our Department of War, military manufacturing, of following the Berry Amendment, knowing that we have 100% domestic content in the products that we make. But with our general products, we had not collected country of origin data. So fast forward to where we are today, we have that information. Today we can tell you exactly where we are in the program, what our content percentage is, and we know exactly where we need to continue working to make sure we have validated all of our products are meeting the requirements. We can show those trends, if you will. We can show where we've got those successes. The Commission has published 2 directives. Most recently, our Directive 26-02. That was just effective July 1st. And the point was to establish an orderly process for us to now collect the certification or the documentation that we need. So we've got country of origin information. We need to go a step further to have the attestations that the supply chain, in fact, does comply, that we are meeting what we're saying we meet when we say our products are Buy American Act compliant. We decided to do that through our existing work processes. So under this directive, all of the AbilityOne nonprofit manufacturers, if they're proposing a new product for addition to the procurement list, or if they're coming in for a price change or some other type of business transaction, if they touch the product, they'll be submitting a certification along with their request to the Commission. That allows us to use our existing workflows and to collect all of the documentation that we need over the course of the implementation period of our directive, approximately a year. So I know that for the AbilityOne community, you really have a tall order these days, I would say, to ensure that you're supplying high quality products on time at fair market prices, and now with the transparent and domestic supply chain that you've certified. Again, we appreciate that effort. I will say, I want to highlight some of the leadership that we have with the members of our commission. We have Mr. Kosis, we have Jeff Mittman here, who's one of our private citizen commission members. Jeff Mittman is now leading our newly launched AbilityOne American Manufacturing Steering Group. So this is a peer group where we will provide leadership, we will look at the challenges, and we will gather success stories and best practices that we can share across the network. And I want to highlight the leadership of Matt Beebe, who's our Department of War Commission member. I want to quote him because we talk about our compliance with domestic sourcing laws frequently with the Commission. And his point is that this isn't about, it's not another area of compliance for AbilityOne. This is in our DNA. This is what we do in the AbilityOne program. We are American manufacturers. We are manufacturing in America. It's who we are. And we're a vital part, as I said, of the U.S. industrial base. So I know that we will continue to make those contributions. We'll continue to highlight our successes. We'll continue to improve as we go along. But that's really how we got to where we are today.
Kim, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing the tremendous actions taken to meet the moment. As we continue our domestic sourcing conversation, my next question is for Jeff Lau. Jeff, as GSA continues to modernize the federal marketplace through category management and strategic sourcing, how can domestic manufacturers participating in the AbilityOne program be better positioned to compete for government-wide demand? Are there opportunities to increase visibility of AbilityOne products within GSA acquisition solutions?
Yeah, when I reflect back to the presentation earlier, Buffy was going through some data points, and when I look at our global supply program, about a third of our transactions touch the procurement list items. I think there's a huge opportunity when I look at some of the work that's happening in the requisition space. Go back to EOs, right? There's so many EOs. When you pull the thread, pull the layers of the onion, those EOs are directing agencies, kind of a GSA. And in many ways, it's touching our requisition program or global supply. So as we kind of move forward in domestic sourcing, in those office hours, I had the opportunity to talk to many of you separately, one-on-one, about the great work that you are doing in your individual MPAs, the employees you're able to hire, the raw materials you're sourcing locally, domestically, to support your paper mills, right, the paper you are manufacturing. I think there's a great story to tell, and as we kind of proceed and move into the future, where else are there opportunities? Some folks that came to talk to us talked about new items that they wanted to get on the procurement list. making sure we're very transparent. What does that process look like? And I'll be honest, when that question was asked of me and my team, I didn't have the answer, right? Because I'm not as closely involved, but we should be. And figuring out, hey, how do we look into the future? I think it's going to be extremely important for us to think of where we are today and where do we want to be, right, in the future. Part of that is changing the product offering. One of the classes that hopefully you were able to attend was demand management. We share this data. It comes out quarterly. It's on our website. I think it's demand.data@gsa.gov. I'll make sure you get the correct one. I might be off by a dot or so. But there's real-time information of what agencies are buying, how frequent, what pricing they're paying. As manufacturers, that's an opportunity for you to look at it and go, hey, is there a space for us to lean into? So I think this is just the beginning of an ongoing dialogue in terms of what that future looks like.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And this is the final question regarding domestic sourcing. And as you can see, this is a priority for us to kind of have this transparent discussion. So, Mark, Jeff Coase has pointed out the very strong language on compliance with domestic sourcing in the Truthful Advertising EO. That will have a tremendous impact on GSA. How is GSA thinking about domestic sourcing, not just as a compliance posture, but as a strategic procurement priority? And secondly, how does AbilityOne fit into that framework?
Thank you, Lynette. I think you've definitely seen the trend in the environment. It's really strong message from the administration. I think what's behind some of this is when you think about security and safety. One, you think about information technology and communications, ITC, certainly security is super important. Obviously in this community, having lived through the pandemic, public health emergency, those are really important, and having a domestic sourcing capability for our nation is important. You also see the economic factors of creating jobs within the United States is continuing to kind of push this. So there's great interest you can see in pushing the domestic sourcing, and then you're seeing that reinforced of what are the labels that our buyers can rely on to make purchasing decisions within the policy framework. And so I think what's really important around that is data. It comes down to data and transparency in terms of one thing. So I think you've seen from GSA that we've invested a lot in data over the past number of years. We've certainly invested in areas like our verified products portal, and knowing that we need to get data directly from manufacturers and wholesalers. We invested in our catalog capabilities so that we are more real-time putting our data on GSA Advantage. You've seen us invest in the demand data that Jeff was talking about, and we made TDR mandatory across the multiple award schedules program, and now we have a better sense of what our customers are buying and what there is a high demand for, and where we're likely to influence the market. And so those are really, really important tools that we will be looking to existing data sources to, as we're looking at understanding a little bit more in this area. The other thing I would say, and part of my role in my team has a supply chain risk management possibility in this 21st century world of data. There's a lot of information out there, and it's pretty easily accessible. So, looking at compliance for SCRIM, a great example is like, hey, somebody tells us an item is made somewhere. We go and do a simple Google search, look at the facility. Doesn't look like a warehouse. Doesn't look like it could be manufactured there. And it's pretty easy to tell that likely doesn't have manufacturing capability. That's a Google search away these days. And there's a lot more sophisticated third-party tools that are on the market. My team uses a lot of them, driven by AI and other technologies out there. So there's a lot more data readily available of where things are coming from, whether it's shipping records, zoning records, other things that are more at people's fingertip. Where I think the AbilityOne program fits in is obviously you're seeing the emphasis applying more of the requirements in terms of the Trade Agreements Act. You're seeing more wanting to push the domestic content requirements in there. and everything like that. And Jeff was pretty clear in the language of the executive order. Where do they look to fulfill those public policy objectives? Well, they tend to look at the largest contract vehicle in the program, the federal government, called the Multiple Award Schedules program, and our other host of vehicles to do that, right? Because that's where the policy officials see the greatest opportunity to influence. So we'll be working through, in terms of the ask of within the executive order. I think it's really important, though, that we have a dialogue with you, and hopefully that's why we're making some of the data transparent. Is it's great to say these things, but we recognize, hey, it takes time, it takes investment. What are the categories of spend that we could actually move the needle on? Part of my office has the government-wide category management office. We also manage the Made in America website. So looking at where there's actual real opportunity based on evidence-based decisions is going to be really, really important. But this is something that I would stress to you that really you need to be paying attention to. You need to be understanding your supply chain, and it really is going to impact this program. This trend is not going away. It's going to continue, and it's going to continue because of those economic and environmental factors that I spoke about.
Mark, thank you so much. We're now going to move into our second round of questions, and an old phrase comes to mind: time flies when you're having fun, right? So we're closing in on 3:30, which gives us about 10 more minutes to answer these additional questions. So I'll ask my panelists to try to keep it to 2 or 3 minutes. We may not get, we may not touch all of the panelists, but we want to make sure we have ample time for audience questions. So Jeff Lau, I'd like to ask you the next question. Looking ahead 12 to 24 months, what should MPAs expect from global supply? Are there changes coming in how the channel will surface, prioritize, or verify AbilityOne products that the people in this room should be preparing for right now?
This is a funny question because I think before all the activity around the RFO, a revolutionary FAR overhaul, global supply was a mandatory source. At some point it was removed. I'm trying to get it added back. But I talked about in my previous answer about a third of our spend touches a procurement list. Today, about 10% of our civilian spend is through the requisition channel. Based on conversations and work we are doing with a variety of civilian agencies, we're going to see that explode in a very positive way, where it's no longer be 90% Department of War, 10% civilian. We're going to see a significant shift. I think there's an opportunity to benefit many folks, including those in the room, right? Especially as you're manufacturing some of these products that are high demand. Creating a space where civilian agencies typically wouldn't access it through the requisition channel to do so. What's happened over the past 18 months, Kim, we've had this conversation, right? We've all experienced a loss of FTE. That means in the agency, a civilian agency might not have the 1102 to do procurements like they were 3-4 years ago. That's where requisition becomes an opportunity. It's easy. You don't have to have a warrant to make an award. We have a team that's dedicated, that has been going out training non-1102s in agencies to use a requisition channel. I think this is just the beginning. I'm not going to name the space, but my team is actively involved with OMB and OFPP talking about where we see opportunities, and we're leaning into them. So I think as we proceed into the future, there's going to be definitely a huge growth in requisition space in the global supply space.
Thank you so much, Jeff. The second question will be for Jeff Kosis. Jeff, we are at a pivotal moment for AbilityOne suppliers. Besides the domestic sourcing conversation, we have the FAR overhaul, FAR supplemental overhauls, contract consolidation, et cetera. What is the single most consequential shift you're seeing right now for AbilityOne supplier MPAs, and why does it matter for the people in this room?
Thanks, Linnell. And let me take that in just a slightly different direction to try and fit some of the themes together. Linnell talked about the fire overhaul, contract consolidation, a host of other things. I've mentioned 48 executive orders. I'd suggest they really come down to 7 big themes, and at least 4 of them I'd suggest hit AbilityOne pretty directly. First, across the administration actions, it's all about the economy. It's about efforts to reduce prices, reduce regulation, reduce costs, while restoring and strengthening Buy America. You all are seeing that very directly in all of the Buy America domestic sourcing, that focus on economy and the role acquisition plays. Second big theme is the importance of speed. We've never seen the FAR call out more aggressively the value of time. You've seen Department of War emphasizing the urgency of action. You've seen agency after agency say, hey, actions that take too long, they are affecting mission, they're affecting readiness, inflation is eating away at our purchasing power. For AbilityOne, we've got to be looking at the procurement list. The process is too slow. It's got to be sped up. For all of you, Jeff, I'm sure, would want me to emphasize the importance of timely delivery. We're in a world when we cannot accept delays, when we have less appetite, less willingness to accept late delivery on anything. We're in a world of speed, and timely delivery is a big piece of that message. Third big theme across all this is about waste and about duplication. That's why the executive order and contract consolidation is so important. A big piece of what Mark and I, among others, are working on. When we have multiple agencies creating the same contract, that's wasteful. That brings inefficiency. That slows things down. For AbilityOne, I would be really interested in what is the potential? How do we come in with fewer contracts? How do we consolidate those contracts and potentially broaden the offerings, but have you manage fewer contracts in the process? So very definitely interested in hearing your thoughts on that. Fourth theme is all about buying commercial products, commercial services. I think you all fit there in all kinds of ways, number of opportunities to expand, to fill some of those gaps in how to fill commercial products and services. Last 3, probably less about AbilityOne, but certainly out there. Use of fixed price contracts, not cost. Steps to promote competition, efforts to reduce protests. But those first 4 themes, I think AbilityOne has a very definite play in those.
Thank you so much. And I think we have time for one final question. So I think it would be appropriate to give the floor to Kim at AbilityOne. Kim, AbilityOne exists because Congress made a deliberate decision that employing people who are blind or have significant disabilities is worth a structured market preference. Can you share in just a few words, why does AbilityOne still matter, and why should federal agencies lean in rather than look for workarounds?
Absolutely. Thank you, Linnell. We've thought a lot about the answer to this question over the past couple of years. Why is AbilityOne still relevant, and how is AbilityOne still relevant? And AbilityOne still matters because we saw on day 1 of this administration, the president published a memorandum talking about lowering costs and drawing discouraged workers back into the U.S. labor force. And we know that people who are blind and people with other significant disabilities have the lowest employment rate of any segment of our U.S. society. That makes them an untapped labor resource. It makes them a talent pool that can truly contribute to our economy, that can help us grow the economy, grow our GDP. So we need this talent pool to be engaged. That's the macroeconomics picture, if you will, but why also should federal agencies lean in and utilize AbilityOne? And I would make the case, of course, we deliver high quality products, we deliver on time, we deliver at fair market prices, but just as you've heard from the panel, we also really need to focus on efficiency. We have a smaller workforce, we need to do more. We need to get the mission done with fewer people, and working with and through AbilityOne can help our customers to do that. So they can maintain a sole source relationship with the AbilityOne program. They can build long-term partnerships with the AbilityOne program. We can become that force multiplier, if you will. So that's what we're striving to achieve every day, is to be that trusted vendor. Yes, we're a mandatory source, but we also want to be a vendor of choice.
Kim, thank you so much. And I think that brings us to the end of our moderated discussion. And now we would like to transition into our Q&A. So now the floor is open. Is there anyone in the audience that has a question for one of our panelists? That means they did an amazing job. No questions. Well, with that being said, I'd like to say thank you to all of our panelists. Are we sure there are no questions? Don't be shy.
Not to put Cassie on the spot when we're doing the office hours. No, this is good. You're fine. Don't worry. She mentioned about, not always just getting complaints, but feedback, right? And this is what this is. This is an opportunity to provide feedback. It's helpful for us, right, as GSA, as AB1, right, as everyone, I think, committed to doing the right thing to get that feedback and figure out, hey, how do we get from where we are to the future state? So thanks for letting me use you as an example. Now you got to ask the question. No, I'm just kidding.
So I had asked one of the questions in the one of the seminars that we were in, but I'm trying to figure out a way for us as distributors to connect with manufacturers that may or may not already be selling into the government, but are procuring or manufacturing the product in the U.S. And there's not really a very easy way to connect with those manufacturers. And I know you guys are going through the process of BAA compliance and getting people into that sort of certification. So my, I guess, suggestion or advice would be, if there's a way to connect those people with actual GSA distributors, it would be easier for us to actually get their products on contract quicker and easier.
Yeah, I'll take that one. I think one of the things we definitely see this really important is develop a closer relationship with the manufacturer, even though they don't sell directly with the government. So tools like Verified Products Portal, we are looking at how do we take better advantage of that so that the information comes from the source and that's who's manufacturing the item and everything like that. So love to hear your thoughts, but I think that's an area that we certainly see in this space as an opportunity to build off some of the success that we've had there and improve.
You got
Not really a question, just more of a suggestion. We have great contacts with the VA, DHS, DLA. Leverage those resources, leverage that relationship we have with them, because DLA, believe it or not, has fantastic industry days with real manufacturers. GSA, it's been a while, right? But if we get the VA, DLA, and GSA in one giant space, probably in Texas, I think we could probably have 10,000 people show up. Manufacturers, not the Lockheeds and the Boeings, talking about the domestic manufacturers, the small guys. I think it's possible.
Thank you. We've heard you. Appreciate the suggestion there.
Don't be shy. You have the leaders, the shapers, they're on the stage. They want to hear your voice. This is the place. And we don't often, have this opportunity. I know a lot of you probably traveled a great distance to be here. I've had the opportunity to have one-off conversations about some of your challenges. So I would just invite you to share those in this space. We have a hand raised in the back.
Thank you. Terry Shirk with Cincinnati Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. On data transparency and the data that's available. I sat in on the conference and on the breakout, and I think that for us as NPAs, in terms of understanding how our product fits in the GSA marketplace and how we compete and how we make sure that we minimize our leakage and violations in that market, the data doesn't really, just the loose bit that I saw today doesn't speak to the needs of the NPA in terms of discovering how we stop that leakage. And I mean, if we don't know where a product was purchased from, which is not included and per the presenter is not allowable, we can't go back and do anything about it. So we now know the government bought $30,000 in silver duct tape. There was a 3M product rather than our product, but we have absolutely no idea how that leakage happened, where it happened, or how to pursue changing that in the future. So I would just encourage, one, some conversation around what data is being collected, how it's being presented, and I would challenge us collectively to talk about data analysis in a way that provides AbilityOne, so whether that's AbilityOne or the CNAs or the NPAs getting together to figure out how we collectively do data analysis to strengthen our place in the marketplace, rather than, everybody out there trying to drill down and figure out how to use that data.
I would just say thank you for that feedback. I think one of the things all the time I see with data, and when we start getting better data, is you don't know how it's good until you've actually put it out to real users, right? And then they say, hey, I've looked at this and it's like I can't solve that particular question that I'm trying to. So getting that feedback is critical so that we're able to make most advantage of it. But it always starts with that first pass of like, hey, we got to push the data out there and see what real people have to say about the data and how good it is, and then it materializes, get better. So I just want to say thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it, and definitely a conversation we should be continuing to have.
Hi, this is Reinhard Mabry with Alpha Point. I just wanted to echo what was said by Terry and add to that. Quite a few years ago, agencies who are base supply store operators were asked to provide level 3 data for credit card transactions. And I believe, and many of us believe, that there is a substantial amount of transactions that are not being discerned and looked at very closely that are through the P-card system. And I think that if we were able to collect that information and look at it transparently, I think we would all learn a little bit about what the needs are and the expectations are, and also where there may be substantial leakage, if it in fact exists. We believe that there's a substantial amount of leakage. We think it's through the P-card is the utilization tool for which that is occurring. We'd love to be able to have some conversation about how that could be made transparent so that we could actually discern what's happening and try to be good partners to you to plug those holes.
Yeah, I think there's a couple opportunities there going in the future. One, we've definitely seen maturity of the transactional data under the multiple award schedules. It's been a journey. Nobody's had this. It's hard. It's really tough, but we've gotten better in the product space, and we're starting to mature in services. The other opportunity that may lie is obviously GSA, and Jeff and his team is working hard on the next generation of the Smart Pay program. So as we're looking to modernize that program, I think we're looking for input and feedback of what are the appropriate requirements for the charge card program going in the next generation and everything like that. I do say, though, the more that gets bought through the schedules program, we're going to have better transparency than anything else there. So particularly when I'm out there talking to agencies and talking to senior procurement executives about procurement consolidation, that is a value proposition for us that, frankly, we can help provide insights that they wouldn't have and make sure that we're helping them, do acquisition excellence. And part of acquisition excellence, right, is buying through AbilityOne and those sources. So I think we certainly want to partner with you, and we're seeing that particularly our channel and Global Supply and these other channels, we are going to see increased amount of spend go through them in the out years.
Any final questions? These were great questions, by the way, so I'm glad you all began to give us some feedback. If not, any final words from our panelists? No pressure.
One area that we didn't get addressed, and I'd be remiss in my role for supply chain risk management if I didn't bring this up. But as I know the AbilityOne programs, you look for new products and areas and markets to get into. Information communication technology and threats to our national security through that is very real. My team supports the Commissioner's role on the Federal Acquisition Security Council. I've seen it. The threats are real. So really investing in a robust supply chain risk capability is paramount in getting into that space. And we're building our brand in GSA around, hey, our brand, it's got to be integrity. It's got to be the brand that they can trust. And we have been paving the way of buying down supply chain risk. So I would just say if you're not in tune of some of the things that are happening in that space and you're looking at that category of spend, that's something you really need to take a look at very carefully.
Mark, thank you so much. Jeff?
This is a theme I've said to my team, and it's where have we been, where are we now, where do we want to go? And with all the EOs and directors Jeff talked about, there's opportunity in that. And the question is, what do we want to do to leverage those opportunities? I think you guys are probably better positioned, right, as manufacturers here to lean into that space. So what is that opportunity, and how do we get there together?
Yeah, and if I could, and Mr. Kosas, you should have the last word. I would like to say a quick word of thank you to GSA for making all of the arrangements for today. Thank you so much for the time that you spend working with AbilityOne. I want to say a special thank you to our distribution partners who I had a chance to catch up with. You all get the AbilityOne products into the hands of our federal customers, and we appreciate that. We've worked with many of you for decades. Thank you again to the AbilityOne nonprofit contractors for helping us meet the mission. I just want to say it's been great to be here and see all of you.
Thank you. Mr. Kosas?
And I want to underline one of Linnell's earlier questions. We are in a moment of profound change. We have more changing in how government operates, how we think about things, how we accomplish mission than has happened in many, many years. Because of that degree of change, events like this take on particular importance. So I want to thank all of you for being here, for traveling, for engaging in dialogue. I want to thank Jeff, you and your team for organizing this. Linnell, thank you for moderating this session. We have to keep talking. There's a lot of challenges, and they don't get solved if we don't communicate. So thank you all.
Thank you. Could we give a warm round of applause to our panelists? Thank you all. This ends our moderated discussion, and I'll ask Ms. Buffy Shear to close us out.
What a wonderful discussion this afternoon from our leaders. If we could, I would also like for us to give a brief round of applause to our fearless breakout session speakers, Carla, Michael, Zen, and David. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate it. So now it's really time to take the insights and the resources and the tools, the meaningful dialogue that you've heard today and discuss it with your teams on how to put it into implementation and establish best practices. You know, what have you seen or heard today that will allow you to better utilize data? What tools or resources does GSA offer that you were unaware of before? Or what best practices were shared today that can help improve your operational efficiency? In the back of your program, this lovely program, hopefully everybody has a copy, in the very back on the last page where there was a note section, there's also a QR code here. I ask that you all please, please, please scan the QR code and take the survey. Your feedback is valuable to us. We encourage you all to take the survey, share your thoughts, share your feedback on this session, and help us improve how we support you all and ensure that the next Supplier Roundtable is even stronger. So I want to also say thank you to the Department of Transportation for allowing us to utilize their beautiful facility and host our event here at their headquarters. Thank you to our senior executives for giving us valuable insight and attendance and showing support for this event. Thank you to all of the speakers again for your support and the support staff who helped put this all together. And most of all, thank you to each of you, our valued industry partners who we rely on to deliver to our customers each and every day. We appreciate all of you for joining us, and we ask and hope that you all have a safe journey back to your destinations. Thank you all so much.